So I recently came back from a holiday and I've got a small case of the post-holiday blues. I had them really bad for the first 36 hours after returning, but a couple of days later, I started slowly getting back into my routine again. So the blues are going away. But what kind of YouTuber goes on a holiday and doesn't talk about it? I did make a semi-recap thingo for my trip to Ireland and the United Kingdom, but it was more so a slideshow of images with some music chucked over the top. This recap will entail a voiceover of my holiday, alongside the accompanying videos and images, as well as small snippets of the investor and aesthetic stat, and brand stat. It's a holiday after all. There wasn't much of the usual 5-stat increases involved. So let's begin. So this image was taken so we didn't forget where we parked. You could kind of gauge where you were based on how far away you were from those airport lights, or you could have just taken a mental note that you were in parking sector B. So this was like 4 a.m. I think. We had issues getting into the car park because for some reason the boom gates into the car park weren't opening. Thankfully, after driving around for another 15 minutes, we tried the boom gates again and there was someone through the intercom to help us out. Shit like this is why you always gotta leave a lot of time before your flight. So once we got through all those annoying airport check-ins, your boy was hungry. Got some Maccas, good way to kick off a holiday I guess. My cut got totally cooked from this holiday, but whatever, was totally worth it. So here are some mandatory flight snaps. I was kinda semi-asleep for most of it though. Here is a snap from the airport at Perth once I touched down. I only took this to show the time zone difference, since there's a 3-hour difference between this side of the country versus the side where I live. And here's some video we took of our hire car. It had some dents in it at first, so we had to make sure we wouldn't get charged for it later. Okay, maybe you thought all that other stuff was boring. I kinda agree, but this is a holiday recap. Gotta encapsulate most of the stuff that happened. So once we left the airport, we went to a relative's house to nap while we waited for our check-in time at the Airbnb, since that was like 3 p.m. and we were already there at like 9 a.m. We were already in Perth by that time. So this image you're seeing is from our Airbnb. It's hard to spot in this image, but that's the ocean you see out the front. Cross the road, walk across some grass, and bam, you're at the beach. We didn't even go to the beach because we did other stuff, but this place would be a sick place to rent with a group of close friends and if you spent a solid week here. Just a nice quick walk to the beach. We went to the supermarket that night to grab some stuff, some supplies. I was randomly craving grapes, so here's my dinner. Chocolate milk and grapes. Was craving grapes for some reason and I wasn't hungry since our relative got us a lot of Hungry Jacks earlier that day. So sitting outside with a nice view of the moonlight was a nice chill time. I don't get much of that in my current routine. Usually my chillin' involves sitting in front of the TV with some non-grind related video on whilst I do something else like stock charts or writing script for a YouTube video. Nice to just chill outside with nature. Now here we have some random flexes in my room, the first instance of a Game of Life stat increase. Arms look massive in the image with my t-shirt on, and you can see there's a decent foundation in my physique, especially because the lighting was okay, and obviously I had no pump. But you can see a good outline of my chest and pecs even at 17 to 18% body fat. The cut will go crazy once I can actually get it done. Here's another instance of a stat increase. So during this holiday, the CPI for the United States came out. It was like 0.1% higher than expected, which caused the algorithms to sell off. I was like, this is an overreaction. Buy the dip. My indicators didn't tell me this. It's just kind of common sense if you've kept up to date with the markets for a while. So in, out, 27% return overnight, easy money. And I'm also having 2-minute noodles for breakfast for some reason. This is the first time I've had this in literally years. And I'm also doing my stock trading course thing I've been talking about for a while. To be totally honest, I thought I would have gotten this totally done during the downtime in my holiday, but I had much less downtime than I thought. Because instead of calling it a day at like 4 p.m. and chilling out the rest of the time, we'd literally be doing something until like 10 p.m. and then we'd head off somewhere at 7 a.m. the next day. So this was the only instance in the holiday where I got some extra work done. Now here is a better image of that close by beach. This image was taken like 10 steps out from the front door. You can see the beach from here. This image was us visiting some lighthouse. Nice view. There's a lot of nice views around West Australia, providing you hug the coast. If you go inland, you'll just see some desert. The nice view will become a theme of this holiday. Now here's some stuff inside the Lighthouse Museum thing. What really intrigued me was the one about the hustle and bustle. This says, Father has shift every night and then works by the day. Mother never rests either, blah blah. Sometimes they hardly notice we're here. Now lighthouses obviously existed hundreds of years ago. The cost of living was also way less, at least you'd assume so, since fiat currency has blown out of control in recent times. Yeah, we did have some hyperinflation back in the day, see 1920s Weimar Republic Germany, but we did not have that here in Australia. So why were both the father and mother working like crazy? How much were they getting paid? How much did things cost back then? Makes you wonder if times were really easy back in the day or not. I have heard of kids starting full-time work in farms and factories when they were like 9 years old. Sure, some of them got rich from it, but it wasn't the case for everyone. It's an interesting thought. Yeah, it's a rough economy right now, but maybe it's not that bad compared to the older days. But that's not the point of this video. Let's not think about the economy and enjoy the holiday. Moving on. Lunchtime, I had some chips and a lot of mussels. Insert muscle pun about the seafood and the gains here. The joke's there somewhere. I'm currently not creative or funny enough to come up with it though. But classic rich type restaurant, paying money for fuck all food. Next stop, chocolate factory. I love how they give you so many free samples. I legit had like 7 to 8 servings of this. I would have had more, but I was still kind of full from the chips and mussels I had earlier. Next stop, seeing some giant rocks next to the ocean. Nice area, again. Nice area / nice views are a common theme of this holiday. If it was up to me, we would have made like 1 to 2 stops per day at most and hung around that spot, but the way my family operates is go and see as much shit as possible in one day. Oh wow, look, another beach, more ocean and sand. This was a pretty cool spot. They had these small hotel type rooms really close by, but this area was pretty secluded from everything. This is prime if your sole intention on your holiday was to just spam beach days. This video was taken later that night, just chilling out by the beach at nighttime, nice and tranquil. Yet more beach images. This was a beach outside our Airbnb. Our last morning at that Airbnb, I took these while waiting for my family to get ready. So we visited a new beach thing, surprise surprise, although this was more so a jetty that lets you go underwater. It was pretty sick. I didn't get as many images, but damn, this place was nice. Close to other shops, heaps of space, nice closed off pool section so you don't run into a shark, and hey, check this out. Bunny at the beach. Maybe this is common where you're from, but this simply does not exist around the beaches in my area. No bunnies on the beach, only seagulls. Here are some images from that jetty. Some are in that little underwater observatory thing, and it shows the whereabouts of where we are in the context of the globe. Almost 2 kilometers out to sea, and several thousands of kilometers away from other capital cities. Here are some videos from that underwater observatory. Pretty cool. Now, this is the street nearby of the house that we stayed at next. Evening versus morning pic. Didn't take many other pics from that night, but it was nice staying at our family. Good food and just watched some Jimmy Neutron on their Paramount Plus account whilst the older relatives just chatted and caught up, aka my parents and my uncle and auntie. Didn't take pics of it. Yeah, I'm sure I'll survive my holiday reminiscing without images of a TV. How's this for a look at? Yeah, another image of the ocean. Check out all the houses and location here though. I bet you $100 that everyone here is over the age of 50 and bought these houses when they were only $600,000 20 years ago. Now here's an interesting thing we visited, a dollhouse, a doll museum. Pretty interesting. Had no idea there was an interest for this. Someone we're related to through marriage has this in their backyard. They're rich, they're old of course. All those years of working and having cheaper real estate helps, but it doesn't deny the fact that they're hardworking. But try replicating this in today's day and age. So this was pretty cool. Although at the time, I wanted to leave, but we stayed like 20 to 30 minutes after my enthusiasm for the doll museum had ended. I did want to spend some time there, but we spent a bit too much time there for my liking. So next stop, visited another family member, and our trip for the night was spent at, surprise, surprise, another lookout / another ocean type location. It was nice, but looking back on this, it's a lot more repetitive than I remember, but it was still cool though. Check out this canon, not sure who this was supposed to defend Australia from. Why would you try and invade Australia from the bottom of the west coast? Especially back in the day when it was functional, back when the military equipment wasn't as advanced. But either way, it's pretty neat, hey? So after visiting that lookout and cannon thing, we went to the local hangabouts. The busy area in this town / city was a pretty nice area. We got some ice cream, didn't get a pic of the ice cream, but it was a little nice treat. So later that night we played pool. I suck at it, but it was a pretty nice way to hang out with the family nonetheless. Next morning, I was waking up at like 6 a.m. each day, since that's 9 a.m. in East Australia time, and my body clock was still sort of synced back to Victoria time. So while the rest of my family was still waking up, I went for a walk to the nearby park, got some sun, listened to some tunes, hung out with the ducks, good tranquil times. Rehab room Valentine's Day video the day after Valentine's Day. On holiday, sitting alone here, just waiting for my family to get up and do something. Brutal stuff, brah. Yep, so it was the day after Valentine's Day. The night prior with my cousins, we were all trying to figure out why it was so damn packed at the local hangout. I guess because it was a Friday night, but then we all realized it was Valentine's Day. We all forgot because we're all single, lol. Can't escape the mog, even on holiday. If you don't know who I was watching / listening to, it was Rehab Room, a black pill / doomer type channel. I think he's a little too pessimistic, but he's still way better than all of the other channels who try and tell you that it's all about personality or whatever, when it clearly isn't. It's good to get perspectives on life from both sides. I listen to both sides of the political aisle, even if one of them is so dumb. I listen to the bull and bear cases for the stock market. I listen to many different perspectives on fitness back in the day. You don't want to be in an echo chamber. You want all the sides and all the perspectives, and then you can form your own opinion once you have all the facts. But anyway, moving on. So we went to get lunch later that day at a nice spot. Earlier we went to some market where I got this giant churro donut thing. I can't believe I didn't get a pic of the market, but that filled me up so much I couldn't finish all my lunch. Good lunch at a nice spot near the beach. There's many beaches around West Australia. Also, check out all the fish tanks of this place. Some in the toilets. There was an eel in the fish tank inside the restaurant. They had a bunch of cool sea creatures that I'd never seen inside a fish tank inside a restaurant before. In case you couldn't tell, it doesn't take much to impress me. It might be a weird trait of mine, but that's way better than being one of those snobs who are like, oh my god, that's not even cool. I hate those people. So after lunch, we had a pit stop at a super fancy Airbnb with my relatives. Check out the views. Pretty nifty. Next stop, visiting our cousin's apartment. The really high up views were from the top of the apartment, the public space. My cousin's apartment was on the lower floor. Can't afford the higher floor, obviously. Too expensive, and they're only in their early 20s. The high up apartments are for all those Gen Xers who've had 30 plus years of working to save up money for those fancy views. But yeah, once again, lots of views on this holiday. So next visit was a lookout with a war memorial of sorts. The bay / river was the same one you could see from the apartment we were just at. The apartment was in a pretty nice area. Only takes you 10 minutes to get anywhere. Nice. Where I live with my parents right now, it takes you 15 minutes just to get to the next town. But when I move, I too will only be 10 minutes away from heaps of nice spots. But yeah, nice spot, war memorial, and my cousin was telling me about the labour market / economics of West Australia. This will lead into an upcoming video I'll make, something I learned on this holiday, about how much your environment matters to the trajectory of your life. But for now, let's move on. So this was taken from another beach, surprise, surprise. We're out quite far here, but it was hard to take a photo of this beach since there was so much tits and ass out at this beach. It was nice to look at, obviously, but if you start whipping out your phone and filming everything, it kind of looks like you're filming some other people, especially because you were like close to a lot of people at this beach. You had to like walk through like semi-crowds and stuff. So this is probably not some issue I want to run into, especially whilst on a family holiday. But yeah, next stop was another beach. So after the beach, we made a pit stop at a relative's house to unwind, then went to a fancy-ass restaurant. Yet again, check out the views. Yes, that's the same bay/river we saw earlier today. It's a different view when there's a sunset involved. I didn't get many other pics here, but it was on a sort of high up platform that overlooked the bay. Not as high as the other views, but this was probably the highest restaurant in the area. So as mentioned earlier in the video where I had mussels at that fancy restaurant, here we are at another one. What you're seeing in front of you, minus the chips, costs like $36 from memory, maybe more. Bruh, I could have gotten a big ass pizza and some garlic bread with that coinage. The menu was kind of small. I had to literally Google image what this was. I see this sort of thing sold at my wagey job and it looks good. Normally I don't eat this risotto thing. I literally can't remember what this is. Yeah, I suck at culinary studies. I eat basically the same food every day. Anyway, classic fancy restaurant, paying a lot for bugger all food. I think you paid for the view, if anything. So that fancy restaurant tried to sell us some desserts. They legit took our empty plates away and then handed us dessert menus. No thanks. They took like 50 minutes to make our food and it was expensive. The desserts were like $16 each. At least. No thanks. We'd have to wait another hour for a tiny plate of ice cream, no doubt. So our cousin knew a place, since, he lives around here. Took us to some nice dessert place, had some cookies and cream thingo, tried to get some pancake thing, but they didn't have an all-day menu. That was strictly breakfast, so oh well. Okay, so bedtime. Or is it? Well, I tried to sleep, but the neighbor next to the fancy house was having a party. How convenient. But on the bright side, the party had a lot of old people. In fact, I'm pretty sure it was only old people. Obviously, you really think a bunch of rowdy teenagers could afford a place like this? The owners of the house are an older professional couple. No surprise, how else do you afford this? And their friends were mostly older people too. So the music literally stopped at 10 p.m. conveniently. And I couldn't hear much from then on. You still had some people chatting, but you could barely hear it when you consider the distance between the party floor and where my room was. Imagine having parents who owned a place like this and throwing a party here though. It would be kind of dangerous since there's a lot of spots you can fall off and do some serious damage, because, drunken kids. I don't think that couple had kids actually, which, again, makes sense. How else are they able to afford a place like this? So, next morning, breakfast with a view. Hadn't had cornflakes in ages. Nice spot. Okay, so a rare instance of some Game of Life stat increases / grind stuff on this holiday. So I hit the 2,000 subscriber milestone whilst I was away. Pretty sick. I think my most recent net worth video attracted some new subs. Kinda surprising since those videos usually aren't as popular, but I guess many of my recent videos haven't been as popular. Damn. Bro fell off for real. But no matter, I'ma keep uploading. It's not like I have anything extra productive to do anyway. I mean, I do have another side hustle idea, but I'll still obviously upload videos. Anyway, we hit the 2,000 subscriber milestone. Pretty sick. And some aesthetics flexes, decent lighting I guess. Been without gym for a week at this point, and I did not even remotely follow my diet. See? Your physique won't fall apart if you have a holiday. It's fine, enjoy a holiday. Maybe if you're gone for a month, then yeah, that could make some noticeable impacts. But for the most part, you'll be fine. Enjoy yourself. So here we are on the way to the ferry to Rottnest Island. As the shitty AI thumbnail implies. This was some giant-ass Navy ship shed thing. It was pretty huge. Here's an image of the dock whilst we were waiting for the Rottnest ferry. Hey, look, a quokka. For those who don't know, this is an animal exclusive to Rottnest Island in Western Australia. They went extinct on the mainland. They have no way to defend themselves. They're too big to burrow underground. But on Rottnest Island, there's like no other animals on here other than the standard ocean creatures and birds around the island. You can't touch these quokkas since it can cause them diseases, which is fair since they probably are the most hygienic marsupials. And you aren't allowed to feed them either. Makes sense. Leave the ecosystem alone. And in case it wasn't obvious from the video, quokkas aren't scared of you, unlike many other animals. Probably has something to do with why they went extinct on the mainland. No survival instincts, so no running away from a fox or anything. Or maybe they're just adapted to humans, who knows. Well, finally got my pancakes. As soon as we got on the island, we saw the quokka. Then one of my uncles wanted breakfast/lunch. So I didn't get pancakes last night, but I got them this morning. This is the first time I've had pancakes in literally at least 7 to 8 years. Probably more. So honestly, most of this day at Rottnest Island involved getting on a bus, then getting off at random stops on the island. We've been before in 2017, but I only remembered the quokkas. Once we got onto the island and on the bus, I remembered that most of the trip last time was spent on just getting on a bus, get off, look around, get back on the bus. Then get off at some other stop, rinse and repeat. Once again, just a bunch of beaches. There were some really nice beaches, but our trip involved just looking around, taking some pics, and then moving on. So the ferry back, we sat outside for the ocean views on the way back to the mainland. Pretty cool. Was really windy and noisy though. Dinner time. Got fried rice. I've been wanting this for dinner for a while now, but we always ended up getting some other stuff. They didn't have as much honey soy chicken as I would have liked, which was annoying. Okay, last stop for the day. We visited one of our uncles. We visited one of our other uncles who's not as involved with the rest of the family. It was good to see them. My cousin who doesn't live with him either came over to visit us, which was great and kind of surprising, since he used to be really quiet. We legit visited him when he lived at home in 2017 and he barely said a word, but at least we saw him. Our other cousin didn't leave their room. It's a little disappointing, but hey, maybe they have some personal issues, but that's none of my business. Regardless, it was a good night. So this was the first morning of this holiday, besides the other one where I hung out with the ducks at the park, and the one where I was working on my stock trading course, where we weren't in such a huge rush anywhere in the morning. So I went for a nice walk around the area. The locals were the types who smile and say good morning to you as you walk past them. I don't know if that's normal for people doing morning walks, since I'm always in my car driving to work in the mornings, but pretty friendly people here. I mean, I'd be pretty happy too if I could afford to live in this neighbourhood. Could also be due to older people who are more casually friendly in general, since, expensive ass homes, only boomers can afford them, so obviously only old people in this area. Probably bought them for like $500,000 40 years ago. Boomers are usually more casually friendly, but once you start having a conversation about the housing unaffordability with them and watch their tone change. You aren't working hard enough, sonny. Here I am in a Porche. I know nothing about cars and didn't even realize this was a fancy-ass car until I was inside it. Pretty cool, but it isn't really used by a relative of ours, but hey, they have it for special occasions. Okay, road trip. 2+ hours to the destination. What you're seeing here is what a lot of West Australia looks like. Australia has shitloads of land, but majority of it is uninhabitable. Can't grow crop, too hot, too far away from literally anything. My dad used to live in West Australia and he knew of instances where people died in minor car crashes on the road, since back in the day, you had no reception out here. So if you got in a crash, you'd have to rely on the next driver to drive back to the city to alert the cops and paramedics, and the victim would pass away whilst waiting hours for medical attention. Just goes to show how a solution to unaffordable housing isn't as simple as, move to the country, bro. I mean, even then, this land isn't for sale, unless you want to pitch a tent on private property that's a several-hour-away drive from anything. So, here we are at the destination, a desert. We're in West Australia and we're not in Perth, so what did you expect? The reason this is a tourist attraction is because of the rock formations. This area used to be underwater, hence the rock formations. Absolutely crazy. Like how much water had to be evaporated or washed out somewhere else for this entire section to be underwater at one point. It was decently high up too, not like the beach was just around the corner either. So next up, another beach 30 minutes away from the desert stuff. Small beach town, really cheap real estate considering the land size and its close proximity to the beach. You can get like 800 square meters within a 5-minute walk to the beach for only $600,000. I don't know where you're from, but that is so cheap here in Australia. However, it's a small town. It's a bad investment since there wouldn't be much capital growth due to the local economy/population, and you'd be hard-pressed to find a tenant here if you considered it an investment property, since, yeah, it's a nice area, but there's no work here besides a minimum wage work at local restaurants/grocery stores. There were 2 banks, but other than that, there wasn't really much. Point is, it's a nice area, relatively cheap real estate, but it only makes sense if you're wanting to retire here. Anyway, removing the investor stat goggles, Nice beach, and our auntie paid for a slushie for all of us. Tasted alright, but there was way too much slushie in this cup. I got sick of it about halfway through. Here we are, the last night of the holiday, checking out some giant-ass cranes, which were very common in West Australia. Don't see too many in my region, since I'm not in Melbourne/big cities that have construction, nor am I in a state with a lot of mining, such as Queensland or West Australia. Check the plane flying over in the background. That was us in about 12 hours' time. Nighttime, driving through Perth to dinner. Dinner time, more fried rice, hell yeah. My go-to food whenever I go out for dinner. Well, that or a Hungry Jack's meal. Hungry Jack's is Australia's version of Burger King. I may or may not explain why there's a difference in a future video. We tried to get dessert afterwards, but they were shut. The classic instance of the establishment shuts at 9 p.m, but they close at 8:53 p.m. To be fair, I understand. I used to close the deli at the supermarket well before 10 p.m, so I understand. Last hours of the holiday, eating something right before the flight. Since the flight didn't offer any food since we picked a budget-ass airline, you could buy food, but it was expensive as fuck. No thanks. I saw like $15 for a pie and Coke, maybe alongside some other food item too, but wow, that's expensive. Point is, just soaking in the nice views before our flight. Last snaps, enjoying the area before I go back to the slums of Victoria, and a nice sunrise over Perth. Welp, touchdown, we're back. You can tell we're in Melbourne based on the sky. It's summer currently here in Australia. Notice how all my West Australia photos/videos had a clear blue sky, other than the first, touchdown at the airport, and besides nighttime. And now notice how it's all grey clouds. Welcome to Melbourne/Victoria, Australia. Australia is known globally for good weather, I think. Yeah, maybe in every other state besides Victoria and Tasmania. Well, that was it. A recap of my holiday. There was more to it, but I'm not going to go into deep detail of everything. Like the jetty and the underwater observatory had more to it, the desert rocks had more to it, but then this video will take me forever. And chances are this video doesn't do super well since my last holiday type video performed like ass. I mean, yeah, I didn't have a voiceover in that one, but that doesn't explain the lack of clicks on the video itself. And at worst, it's a nice recap for me to go over and reminisce on in the future. So if you did watch this holiday recap, thanks for watching. It wasn't your typical holiday video, where some attention-seeking douche carries a camera around everywhere, filming everything and talking to the camera whilst being out in public spaces. But unlike the holiday vloggers, I actually enjoyed being in the moment, rather than utilizing a holiday for the sake of content. Anyway, thanks for watching. That is all.